Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Talk with the Titans, live from London, UK, all the way to the US of A and worldwide. I'm your host, Callum L, and this is Talk with the Titans. On tonight's show, we have brother Zion Lexx in the studios. Oh my gosh, brother Zion Lexx in the studio. He is Polight's prosecutor in the February the 8th debate, Kemet on trial. Okay, so he's going to be in the studio today giving us a dazzling dissertation on the Hebrew language, the DNA of creation. But before that takes place, I need to get some exclusives from our brother right now. I need to get some exclusives. He was sitting on Sarnetta's couch with brother Shakka, Ahmose, and brother Reggie. So I want to get some exclusives from that. I know that clip has been taken down. I want to get some exclusives from the rules of engagement. I see him and brother Polight squaring up in the rules of engagement. So I want to get some exclusives. But for the meantime, brother Zion Lexx, shalom. How you doing?
Shalom, brother. How you doing, man? It's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Great. Okay, please. If anybody has got anything in the background, please just turn it off. Okay, who else have we got here? We've got in the studios today, we have our brother Isa from the UK representing Black Shia Muslims. We also have brother Panahisi representing the Hebrew War Machine in the building. But we've got a full 60 minutes ahead of us. So before the time runs away with us, we're gonna get it started right now. So, brother Zion Lexx, I want to know. Let me know about your character, brother Reggie, and Ahmose. Let me know.
Well, it was a beautiful thing, you know. Sarnetta took it out. He spoke with brother Nasir Yashuvel, whom again I know for over 20 years, and I was invited to come down and sit with him. Initially, before then, we met up at the National Harlem Theater, you know, broke bread and had a beautiful discussion. And for me, you know, and for all of my fellow Hebrews walking into forums like this or debates like this, the first thing that we want to make clear is this. It's unfair to label or look at any one group or any one faction within an organization and say to yourself that that faction should represent the entire nation, because no one does that with any other organization. So we feel that it's hypocrisy when it's done with us. What do I mean by that is this. People always love to equate Hebrew Israelites with various factions and groups that they see on the TV and in the media. Unbeknownst to them is the idea that there are many different factions within the Hebrew Israelite movement. Not all of us have the same views. Not all of us think the same. Not all of us convey our information with the same level of character, for lack of a better term. With that being said, the same thing exists in the Kemetic community. In the Kemetic community, not every so-called Egyptologist or Kemet scholar views on Kemet are the same. We've watched on Sarnetta TV, we've watched Shakka Ahmose argue it out with Polight. We've watched Polight argue it out with the Amun-Ra squad. So with that being said, whenever you turn on these forums and you watch them point out any division in, I guess, doctrine that Hebrew Israelites may have. For example, you have some of us that are Messianic versus some of us that are non-Messianic, and then the first thing that they equate that with, they say, well, your text must not be rich. Your text must not convey truth, because how is it that you go by the same text, but you all have different views? Well, the first thing I like to point out is the hypocrisy, which number one is, don't do that when, on essence, the same thing is being conveyed in your community. For instance, you had Polight last year who did a UFO conference. Shakka Ahmose don't believe in no damn UFOs. So let's keep it real. You have brother Polight who believes that when you look into the scriptures, every time you find the word Elohim, which in his poor understanding of Hebrew, he sees it as it conveying the idea of many gods, and he equates that with aliens. And he will tell you, as he's written and published books, that these aliens in turn are our descendants, and they're the ones who built the pyramids. Again, when you sit down with Brother Shakka Ahmose, he's going to tell you that man built the pyramids. So with that being said, you have division in thought in both camps. But that division in thought does not point to the doctrine. It points to the people who are conveying that doctrine. So let's keep it real and make that distinction first and foremost. That's what I would like to say about that.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, you know what? Let me just get let me get this popping. Let me actually get, you know, the fire, the pot brewing right about now, because you was up in the rules of engagement last week Wednesday, and
right.
I don't think anybody has seen this clip as of yet, or very few people have seen this clip, and it looked like you and Polight were about to go head to head. So this is a clip from Sarnet TV. Let me just play it quick, 20 seconds.
How do you feel about your brother right here, man, Zion Lexx? Was you all trying to get him, you know, warm him up before the debate?
I'm just trying to toughen him up, man. I'm trying to toughen him up. Because I think he going into this with the wrong state of mind. So, after I'm done with him for 2 more videos, I think he's going to be prepared to fall at least less harder than he was going before.
Number one, he's not in any caliber or standing on any foundation of which to say or make a statement like that towards me.
I'm going to see to it that you get tougher. I give you my word. I'm not lying to you, brother. I'm going to make you tougher, brother. I'm going to sharpen you up. You know what I mean?
Whoo! So that was the little runnings between you and Polight. He's trying to say he's trying to make you tougher. But by the end of the discourse, by the end of that rules of engagement, I'm not even gonna lie, it looked like Polight was on the back foot of that discourse going on. There was mad emotions in the air. Polight was stuck for words at certain points. He was rambling. I think you really had him on the back foot. So let me know what happened.
Well, first and foremost, let me just confirm something real quick. When I introduced myself to the conscious community initially, you know, I wanted to make it clear that the direction that these debates are going in is totally wrong. You know, regardless of our different viewpoints, we should regard ourselves as brothers, both sides of the table. Now, of course, we know that Hebrew Israelites do believe that not all black people stem from a particular tribe. In the greater scheme of things, Hebrews do believe that all mankind is traced to one man. That is a fact. But what's also a fact in Hebraic thought is the idea that there are different families, tribally speaking, in the Torah. So what that means is that we may all be brothers, but you still have to be true to your ancestral link. And as far as Hebrew Israelites are concerned, the closest ancestral link that we have that we can relate to is our Hebraic ancestors who took the ride across the transatlantic ocean, who wind up in places like America and the West Indies. So with that being said, you have people like Polight, who comes out of Nigeria, and, you know, he feels rejected. He feels like, well, your doctrine doesn't belong to me because, you know, by virtue of the fact that your doctrine would call me a Hamite. Well, in essence, that's not necessarily true because contrary to what Polight may be aware of in his own country, I'm in contact with a brother right now, and I want everyone to pay close attention to this name, as you could actually find him on Facebook. I'm in close contact with a Nigerian lawyer and author. His name is Remy Ilona. I'm going to spell it for you. R-E-M-Y, last name Ilona, spelled I-L-L-O-N-A. Remy Ilona. He's a lawyer and a Nigerian historian / author. He is one of the founding fathers of the Igbo tribes in Nigeria today, and he wrote several books about the West African ancestry, which he believes through his historical understanding of all of the oral traditions of the West Africans on the west coast of Africa. He believes that they can trace their roots, bar none, emphatically to the biblical Hebrew Israelites. So with that being said, you know, for Polight to jump and say, well, your doctrine doesn't apply to me, we really can't say that. We don't know. What we do know is that we do have black Hebrews, which are the only Hebrews, you know, by the way. We do have Hebrews on the west coast of Africa. You know, that's fully documented. That's not just documented by your so-called ghetto scholars, but that's documented by people, you know, in the greater historian community. So with that being said, You know, I just wanted to make that clear for Polight that although he may have ran into with Africans, you know, to the ancestral lineage in the Torah, I want to make it clear that when it comes to us, that's not true. Not all Hebrew Israelites believe that. As a matter of fact,
Is our brother there? It looks like he's
people who
mic is.
share. So with that being said, again, when you speak to any Hebrew Israelite or the greater majority, they will correctly let you know that when we speak of Israel, it is Northeast Africa. Do remember, before the building of the Suez Canal, Egypt and Israel was not separated by land. Not until the building of the Suez Canal was Egypt and Africa separated water. Before that, as the Torah relates, it was an 11-day journey by foot to Israel. I have a great deal of love for our African brothers. So much so in that we recognize that, you know, a lot of our major patriarchs, their histories are birthed and founded in regions today known clearly as Africa. And I'll begin with our forefather Abraham. Our forefather Abraham may not have been born on the continent of Africa, but our forefather Abraham, according to the Torah, comes out of what is called Chasdim, which is the land of the Chaldeans, which, if anyone is familiar with Abraham's history and timeline, during the time that Abraham lived in quote-unquote Babylon, a Cushite kingdom. Cushite meaning who? Ethiopians. And that's just Abraham. Clearly, everyone who's somewhat familiar with the Torah already knows that Moses was born in Egypt, which is Africa. When you talk to any Torah scholar, they will tell you that the nation of Israel's birthplace is Africa. Why? Because that is the place where our collective nation grew to the populace that it now became known to in the Torah. So with that being said, you know, contrary to what a lot of people may think Israelites believe about Africa, I, for one, want to let you know that that's a minority view, because when you connect with the greater Israelites globally across the world, you come to find out that not only do we embrace Mother Africa, but we also embrace the fact that we have brothers and sisters there as well who are cognizant of the fact that they are Israelites too. Now, just touching back on Brother Polight, again, when I initially introduced myself to the conscious community, I said that, you know, I wanted the direction of these debates to be positive, and I wanted it to be, you know, I wanted it to be something that my kids could look at, you know, down the timeline and be able to, you know, look up to it. So with that being said, I wanted to make sure that my delivery was calm, cool, and above all classy. And I think anytime you're speaking about righteousness or you're speaking about wisdom, there's a certain way that you conduct yourself. So when I heard Polight's response, clearly it was a letdown, because I do know, as Polight told me on the phone, that in order to sell seats, you want to create entertainment. Polight said that to me. In rebuttal to me responding to Polight about the use of the word nigger, me and Polight had a telephone conversation, and Polight said, listen, brother, I don't have nothing against you. You know, I didn't really mean to use the word against you, but, you know, it's all for the hype. You know, we do this to fill these seats. And for a small semblance of time, I could see where he's coming from, but in the greater scheme of things, it let me know that there's not too much vibration going on in his level of consciousness. Because if you got to use the word nigger in order to sell seats to a people that you feel that only appeals to, then that says a great deal about the low frequency of vibration in your thought itself. So that what you're creating now is you're giving in to the unconscious mind by fueling it with negative language, as opposed to building them up and empowering them with powerful speech that would cause them to rise and elevate with a more empowering consciousness. Now, during the rules of engagement, that was a very funny thing for more reasons than one. And I can be eyewitness for those who weren't there. And everyone knows Starnet is going to drop the full video. So if I've said anything throughout the course of what I'm about to say right now, you can clearly reference the full video with Shawnetta will be showing soon so that you can see what it is that I'm saying, whether or not it's true. So the first thing I want to say is that Brother Polight at one point got up in the rules of engagement, and he got very emotional towards Nasi Yashuvel, in that Nasi Yashuvel said, you know, Polight is the one that said that he wanted a collegiate style debate. But yet, when he rebutted to Brother Zion Lexx, he let the word nigger run like we was two niggas in the street, which is not cool. So Polight got up now, and he said, listen, man, all that is unnecessary. He said, listen, as a former Crip superior, you know what I mean? I got people in the street, man, and not all of them have the same level of consciousness as everyone in this room, which, by the way, I salute that. I could salute Polight telling me that, you know, he can relate to the fact that he got brothers who don't have any semblance of consciousness who want to learn, so he's trying his best to wheel them in. But here's something that I didn't like that Polight loves to brag about, in essence, when he's in these forums. During that time, he also said, as you'll see on video, man, you know, I'm a former Crip superior, man. One time, you know, it was wrong, but I had to put a hole in a brother's head. Let me just make something very clear to y'all. And I'm watching this screen right now, and I could see some of the people who are present in this forum. So I actually have in this forum somebody who could witness something I'm about to say. Excuse me for calling out your name, brother, but I speak truth, so I'm going to do it. So I noticed that one of the people who are present in this call right now, his name is Gary Lexx. Gary Lexx is a major promoter, or was a major promoter in New York City at one time as far as dancehall reggae is concerned. And me being of West Indian / Jamaican and Guyanese descent, I was very much into that as well. What he can tell you is that I introduced him to a brother by the name of Tip Top, who's my older cousin. With that being said, he's the one that established and brought in the Crips to New York. And that's data. That's a fact. With that being said, Polight is supposedly coming out of Brownsville, New York. Anybody who knows will tell you that when you talk about Crips in Brooklyn, New York, you're talking about my family member, a brother named Tip Top that comes out of New York, who's had to be running around talking about he's Crip superior, and my older cousin never heard of you. That right, walking. If you want to be in the streets, be in the streets. If you want to be conscious, but don't let any case that we can't do, and definitely don't throw titles out there that the streets don't confirm. So I just want to make that very clear. Moving on to his point of him saying that, you know, I got to toughen Zion Lexx up, I just got to let y'all know something. It's a major difference between speaking and engaging in a particular environment and being able to handle yourself in a completely adverse environment. Saying all that to say, I have irrefutable street credibility. There's people on the line right now that live in New York that could tell you that. I don't need to tell Polight that. Polight is not even my age. Polight is a younger dude. He's about 29, 30 years old. I'm 35. You know what I mean? And I've been around the streets of Brooklyn much heavier and much longer than Brother Polight. But unlike Polight, I don't need to throw my street credibility out there in order to give me a base. Because my intelligence, which took me out of the streets, is that which gave me the foundation and the base that I have right now. So again, when I hear Brother Polight speak and glorify that life that I've lost friends to, that life that, you know, several people that are no longer here or locked up, I don't have anymore, as a person who really lived that life, I don't glorify in it because I lost people to it. So whenever you usually find people who glorify it after the fact, let me just let y'all know a secret right now. Those are people who never lived it, and that's real talk. So don't be of people that are going around talking about they Crip superior and all that. If the streets don't co-sign it, that's not what you are. And you can ask anybody in Brooklyn. As a matter of fact, leading up to the debate, you know, I feel it has to be exposed. So I'm actually going to call out a couple people from the neighborhood and have them make it clear to y'all. Polight never was and is no Crip superior. Let's just make that very clear. Moving on now to the debate. Polight got exposed by Brother Nasi several times. Nasi Yashuvel said to Reggie first, he said, and I'll quote, wait till the video comes out so you can see that I'm telling the truth. Nasi Yashuvel said verbatim, Reggie, didn't me and you have a conversation on the phone where you said to me that not only don't you know how to read the Medu, but even your master teacher, Yosef Ben Yakinen, he also doesn't know how to read the Medu. If when I tell you crickets hit the room, For about 10 seconds flat, crickets hit the goddamn room. Reggie was quiet. He couldn't say a damn word. The only thing that he did say, and Polight said as well, is, damn, I'm going to take a private conversation and make it public, brother. So with that being said, he was exposed. Neither Reggie nor your master teacher reads the Medu. So with all the scholarship that Dr. Ben had, with all of the books that he wrote, if you can't read the Medu for yourself, the only thing that you gave me was quotology. You quoted from writers who went into Kemet and gave you their interpretation of it, or like Brother Polight loves to say, gave you their interpolation of it. But you yourself have not been able to confirm it. You see, unlike the Kemetic community, when we go into our Hebrew Tanakh, when we go into the Torah, we're going into the Hebrew, and we can read it. We can read the Proto-Semitic Hebrew, which is our pictographic ancestor. We can read the Paleo-Hebrew, which is today called Ancient Hebrew, or in Hebrew, Katav Ivrit. We can read what is so-called Modern Hebrew, which you find in Torah today. We can read it and interpret it at will. None of these dudes could do that with the Medu. And we're going to make that very clear because we're going to put them on the spot. We got pieces and parts of the Medu that we know they don't have access to, and we're going to ask them to read it in front of everybody. And when they can't read it, shut the hell up. The game is up. So with that being said, we're not coming to play any games. From the jump, I'm a person that I have to be true and objective. So with that being said, I have a great deal of love for the legacy, the righteous legacy inherent in Kemetic history. I don't think anybody can deny that when you look in Kemet, there is a semblance of legacy that all the darker peoples of the world can find glory in. You're talking about a people of color who to this day are responsible for works and monuments that has the globe distraught and trying to figure out. That's a legacy within itself. And with that, I take my hat off hands down and give them their credit. But by no means does a couple of buildings equate with the doctrine of the Torah, which is still in use today. You know what's fact? The only people that breathe life into so-called mechat, as Polight loves to pronounce it, or some people say ma'at, or some people say ma'at, the only people that breathe life into it, is our people. When you go deep into the Sudan, where you find real Egyptians, the actual descendants who were pushed out of their country after 586 BC by the Babylonians who invaded it first. When you go into the places like the Sudan and you find real Egyptians, you know what they are today? They Christian, they Muslim, they atheists, and some of them walking around talking about they quote-unquote Jewish. But guess what? None of them are talking about Ma'at. Here's a question that I want to pose to the conscious community. Truth is eternal. Anyone who has a semblance of wisdom understands that fact and discerns it without any problem. You understand it, you internalize it. Truth is eternal. So if truth is eternal, and you're telling me that Ma'at represents a supernal truth, let me emphasize that. Ma'at represents a supernal truth, which in essence should be eternal, then I have to ask you a question. Why is it that we can go into Africa right now and not find any nation in Africa practicing it? No European is stopping you. All the Africans know about it. Why is it that they pay my book, the Torah, more attention than your book? Now, of course, I'm sure you're going to give me a propaganda rebuttal. You're going to tell me that Europeans have put the wool over their eye and have, blinded them from their true historic and spiritual roots and have given them my book, which is a carbon copy of what is taught in Kemet, which again is something that we're going to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt doesn't have a hand to stand on nor a leg to back it up with. When you talk about plagiarism, let me just tell you something from a court of law point of view. I'm a graduate of John Jay College here in New York City. And let me just give you some common sense about how a court of law would view your claim of plagiarism. When you walk into a court of law and your claim is that you have a work that you authored and someone else plagiarized that work, the very next thing that you're going to be asked in this court of law is proof of your authorship. You understand what I'm saying? The first thing that you're going to be asked when you enter this court of law is, can you prove that you authored this book? So the first thing that the Egyptologists need to do when they talk about our book is plagiarized from the Torah. The very first thing that they need to do is go into Kemet and read the Medu and then come back and tell me where my book fits in it. Here's the first and foremost problem with that. None of y'all read the goddamn Medu. So none of you could do it. Knock it off. We try to make it so simple and so fair, but at the same time so clear. Cut it out. Nobody in the entire Kemetic community reads the Medu. None of y'all. I have respect for some of y'all, but I have to keep it 100%. Everybody that I've met personally and spoke with who's supposed to know the Medu, none of y'all know it. And then I'm hearing that some of your scholars who say they know it don't know it. They have various references in the Medu memorized, but there's a difference between memorizing a text and being able to translate, and transliterate and read that text, which none of them actually read it fluently. And what I'm going to expose in today's short presentation is the fact that Polight, when he does shows, you know, he got on the flyer talking about he's fluent in 8 languages. Brother, I just watched your video on Hebrew. You're not even fluent in Hebrew. You know, my father told me as a young man, again, I have to state my age, I'm 35 years old. My father told me as a young man, beware of the man who's the jack of all trades yet master of none. I don't think y'all hear me. I'm going to say that again. Beware of the man who's the master or jack of all beware of the man who's the jack of all trades yet master of none. Polight is the prodigal son of his student Dr. Malachi York. So what did Dr. Malachi York do? Dr. Malachi York studied various languages in the East and in Africa. He has no scholarship in either one. He knows a little bit about each one. So he takes the little bit that he knows, which are key fine points that he uses in his doctrine, and impresses upon you the idea that he understands these languages. But when you speak to people who are actually fluent in these languages, they will tell you just off the pronunciation alone, and then the thought conveyed after it, that these individuals have no understanding at all of the Hebrew language. So the first thing we want to do right now is let's look at this brother Polight trying his very best to teach a class of people the Hebrew language. I found this clip very interesting and I want to share it with y'all. Please roll that footage.
Or he created something like himself. That's not necessarily. Okay, this is Elohim. This means those judges, but this many people say God, and really it's not saying.
Turn that volume up.
Because when you see these 2 letters here in this order at the end of the word, this denotes pluralization. So the word is Elohim, which means God or judge. When you have a yod and meme at the end of the word, this denotes pluralization, which gives you Elohim. So you have Elohim. Y'all saying Elohim. I'm going to say it like you are God, or you came from one. Elohim. Elohim.
That's all from the clip?
That's it.
All right, the first thing we're going to expose is this. I had a phone conversation with Polight and Sarnetta. Sarnetta called me, and for the very first time, a couple of weeks ago, I spoke with Polight for the very first time. Never spoke to the brother before, never seen him before in person. I spoke to him on the phone for the first time. The first thing that Polight told me is that he loved the video that I did with Sarnetta, my initial video. The second thing that he told me is that he definitely has respect for my demeanor and my delivery. The third thing he told me I found very interesting because I thought that he was against it. He said, you seem to be very strong in the Hebrew language. He said, I want to tell you something, brother. He said, when it comes to the Hebrew language, I have a great respect for it. You know, Hebrew conveys various frequencies of light, and when you consider it from a phonetic, a linguistic, and an etymological point of view, there's no way to denounce the fact that this language is a holy language. The first thing that scratched my mind when I heard this was that, you know, this was very confusing for me. How is it that Polight is supposed to be standing on, first, a Nuwapic base, right? Polight is, let's not forget, Polight is a Nuwabian Islamic Hebrew. That's first and foremost. Let's not forget that. Don't pay attention to the fact that Polight walks around with a new name, which is Nu-Covenant. The first part, Nu, is what? It's an acronym for what? Nuwabian. He's letting you know that he's still attached to his roots. If he wasn't still attached to his roots, he wouldn't be walking around with another headdress that fully says Nuwabian on it when he does these debates. So let's keep it real. He still walks around teaching what his teacher taught him. One thing I want to make very clear to everyone present listening to this presentation is this. You may be moved by many of the things that Polight says, but I want to remind you something. Polight has said nothing unique in the 7 or 8 years that you've known him to be teaching. What do I mean by that? When you regurgitate verbatim everything that someone else said and don't even put it in your own words, because when you check the videos of Malachi York and you check out the videos of Polight, the brother don't even take what York is saying and put it in his own words. He's quoting him verbatim down to the damn comedy. We're going to expose all of that on February 8th. I mean, you couldn't even come up with your own joke? You copied his punchline? Damn!
Lexx, get him,
so with that being said, the brother
bro.
has said nothing unique. So I asked a question just last night to a fellow Nuwabian. First thing I asked him, does the Nuwabian community consider Polight, you know, part of the community? Brother said to me, no way. He said, if you listen to Polight carefully, Polight no longer embraces the teachings that we give him. He went and did his own thing now. So with that being said, I found out some very interesting things about Brother Polight that I won't let fully out the hat right now, but I just want to let you know that the jig is up, and there's a lot of things about Brother Polight that the conscious community in the whole doesn't know, but we have that information, and we're going to let it loose come February 8th. So the first thing, going back to Hebrew now, is this. Let me just let the conscious community know how Hebrew sounds when it's supposed to be read correctly. Y'all just heard Polight say, and I'm going to read it to you verbatim, and I want y'all to be able to go back and check that video out. That video is online, and it's called Brother Polight Teaching Hebrew. You can type that in on YouTube. So what I'm going to pronounce for you right now is not me trying to make fun of Polight. You can actually go back and look at the video and see that Polight is pronouncing the language just like I'm going to give it to you right now, which is how Polight pronounced it. So I'm going to give you the language how Polight pronounced it. We're in the book of Genesis, chapter 1, verse 1. Polight says to his listening audience, the first word of the Torah is Barashit. You see, Barashit. The first word is the letter Beit, and it's Hebrews right now probably falling off their seats laughing, because everybody know that's not how you say the word. That's number one. There's a vowel under the Beit of Bereshit. There's a vowel under it. All of my Hebrew communities, brothers, know what that vowel is. That vowel is the vowel Zereh. Zereh. When you pronounce the first letter of the word Bereshit, you pronounce it saying Bereshit, not Ba-Rashit. What will give you a Ba is what's called a Patak or a Chamatz. Neither vowel is present under that letter. So that's just the first little thing that I'm going to critique about this right now, because Polight began this class by telling them that he's going to teach them ancient Hebrew, he's going to teach them biblical Hebrew, and he's going to teach them modern Hebrew. The first thing I have to ask as a biblical Hebrew scholar is, how are you teaching them that when you don't understand Hebrew? Moving on. The last part of the word he tells you is shit, and he even makes a joke about it in the video. He said, listen, it's bara shit. You know, like when you gotta take a shit, and he got the class in an uproar. Let me just remind the conscious community about Polight real quick. What Polight doesn't have in scholarship, he makes up for in entertainment. Y'all didn't hear me. I need to say that again. What Polight doesn't have in scholarship, he makes up for in entertainment. That's why Polight, in rebuttal to me, needs to use the word nigger. Because Polight lacks the scholarship to defeat me intellectually So now Polight has to take destructive language and use it. Why? Because Polight wants me to think, and he wants the conscious community to think, that's the best that we can do. And when you watch all of the little stupid, silly comments of all the little people behind him that come with similar comments, you have to ask yourself a question. I'm not sure if everybody commenting is a grown-ass man, but I'm a grown man. When you're a grown man and you rise to a level of consciousness, when you are competing with a person intellectually as an intellectual combatant, you don't need to disrespect or violate that person. But Polight seems to have an attachment, or I guess a weird affinity with when he doesn't have scholarship, he makes it up with entertainment. So of course, when he's reading the first word in the Torah, which is Bereshit, he tells the listening audience that it's bara shit, like when you gotta take a shit. And of course, they erupt into an uproar because for the most part, Polight actually was speaking to a people who were blind. But here is my point of view when it comes to that. The way to help a blind person is not to further fuel him in his ignorance. The way to help a blind person is to reach deep down inside and cause that person to see. What you don't do is stoop down to a person's level to empower them. What you do is you open their eyes up and you open all of their channels from within to empower them. We don't need to dumb our people down to empower them. Don't accept that. Let's make that very clear. Moving on now, the brother says, I already proved that he can't read Hebrew. That's number one, because he can't pronounce the words. So just so you know how it is pronounced, it's supposed to be pronounced Bereshit, Bereshit, which means in the beginning. The next word is bara. The following word is Elohim. The first three words of the Torah is Bereshit bara Elohim, which means in the beginning, God created. Now, when Polight comes up to the word Elohim, he says something that I find very interesting, which last night I had a conversation with him on Sarnetta's couch. I called in while he was on Sarnetta's couch to rebuttal his ignorance. Polight, when he looks at the Hebrew word Elohim, he says, well, the Hebrew word, compound word. The first part is Elo, which is singular, and the last part is Im, which is a masculine plural. And this masculine plural is composed of the Hebrew letters Yod and Mem, which gives you masculinity or masculine plural, which in essence is right. When you add, or when you place as a suffix to the word Elo, and you place the words Yod and Mem, it becomes a masculine plural. But what Polight doesn't understand, because Polight has no scholarship in Hebrew, again, he's the jack of all trades and master of none, is that when you add the Yod and the Mem to Hebrew, it does not denote multiplicity of characters. The idea that it conveys is immeasurability of essence. What does that mean? When we speak of the Creator, we speak of Him as being the all-powerful. Do you know that the literal translation of the Hebrew word for Elohim is not God? It's actually power. Let's prove that. In the book of Genesis, chapter 31, verse 29, the Hebrew word for power is Elohim. I'm going to read it to you first in the English, and then I'm going to show and prove it to you in the Hebrew, just so we can bring more awareness to the overall community. You see, the idea of all these debates and all of these forums is to empower us collectively with truths. So I'm hoping that there's going to be things that the so-called Kemetic or Egyptologist scholars are going to bring to the table that are going to empower our awareness and enhance our understanding of Kemet as well. And it's the job of us as Hebrews to enhance your understanding of the Torah and the truths that the Torah conveys. So with that being said, the book of Genesis, chapter 31, verse 29.
Real quickly, Brother Lexx, before you go into that, could you possibly just bring your camera a little bit up? So
I can't hear you, brother. You got to speak up a little louder.
That's it. We just need your camera to be up so we can see your face a little bit. If you are loving out there in YouTube land what our brother is talking about, please give us a big thumbs up. I'm reading your comments right now on the side, or literally on the side right now. I'm reading all your comments. When we get to the latter part of the show in the next 20 minutes time, we're going to get your questions answered. We're going to read out some of your commentary live on air. Please, I'd just like to remind everybody that our shows are live every single Wednesday. Every single Wednesday, our shows are on 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, okay, or 11 p.m. GMT. So next week, Wednesday, we will be live yet again. So please, just like the information if you're loving the information, and please press the subscribe button down below if you want to hear more from the Titans themselves. We've got our brother Zion Lexx right now live in the studio, dropping, firing shots, dropping bombs, and shooting missiles at the moment. So I know our brother Polight is going to come into the studios very shortly. I'm not too sure if it's going to be today or in the future, because I know Sankofa is going to be on next week Wednesday as well. So it's going to be very interesting to know who's going to be in the studio next. Is it going to be Sankofa, or is it going to be our brother Polight? Because damn, our brother is going in at the moment. So brother Lexx, please continue presenting the information.
Yes, I'm going to try to make it as consolidated and short as possible, so that we can get some questions and we can have a fair peer review, because at no given time do I have the intention of me speaking and nobody being able to either co-sign or challenge, because I welcome all views, whether they be positive or negative, whether you agree or disagree. I want people to have a question to answer me any question. We got the Torah open, so any question you want to answer, you can ask. Right now you're talking to a person that is quite different than most of the Hebrews that you're probably going to ever meet. My scholarship in the Torah and in the Hebrew language is phenomenal. So if you have a question, more than likely, you need to ask it right now. So I'm going to close, as far as I'm concerned, what I'm saying right now, so that we can get most of these questions in. But before I do that, I want to go into this little verse real quick, and I want to go into that clip with Malachi York. So with that being said, the book of Genesis, chapter 31, verse 29 says, "It is in my power to do you harm." I'm going to stop right there. Everybody can read English, right? So when you open up the book of Genesis, chapter 31, verse 29, the word used in English is power. Now, when you come into the Hebrew, guess what the word is? El, which is a singular Hebrew term for what? Power, or what people translate today as God. Hebrews properly understand that when we speak of the Creator, we're speaking of an immeasurable energy or an immeasurable power. When the Creator speaks about forming man in his image and him creating male and female denote the positive and negative polarities of energy. When you speak about energy, you know that energy has a positive and it has a negative. So when the Creator says that he created man in his image, male and female, what we're saying is that the Creator is energy, immeasurable energy, and the positive and negative polarities signify or indicate our biological differences, which is male and female. So what that means is it really calls for a person who understands Hebrew to interpret it. What it really calls for is someone who actually practices Torah to interpret it. Y'all wouldn't dare consider me an authority on Kemetic doctrine, because you know that I don't even practice it. You know that I don't take it seriously. So my scholarship in it is going to have a limit. So we want to make that very clear to you too. When you open up this book, your scholarship in it is going to be very limited, because number one, you're approaching it with a biased view from jump. The second thing that I want to point out before we take questions is the hypocrisy of Polight. Polight is a very hypocritical individual. Polight has a video out where he's saying that brother Daniela is a fool for being a priest and not wanting to answer questions before a debate on February 8th. And I quote Polight when he said, "How you going to be a priest and when the people need an answer, you're going to tell them wait till February 8th? What kind of priest is this?" Well, you know what? I'm not going to wait till February 8th. I'm going to give y'all an answer now. Well, let me rewind y'all thought for a second. There's a video on YouTube where Polight is having a preliminary debate with Tazariak from ISUPK. That debate is at the Black and Noble's bookstore. Anybody can go on YouTube and see this debate. It's the preliminary debate for Brother Tazariak and Polight. Brother Tazariak clearly asked Polight, "What evidence do you have for your gods in ancient Egypt. Polight said, what? Tazariak said, you heard me. What evidence do you have to support the existence of your gods in Egypt? And Polight said, and I quote, I reserve the right to answer that question during our debate. So here's my point. Why make fun or ridicule the brother Daniela for wanting to hold on?
Can't hear nothing.
Let it hit you February 8th. No one can possibly take you serious as a scholar when you can have such blatant hypocrisy coming out of your mouth. Moving on to the next hypocrisy that he said, and I'm using again ISUPK, my brothers, as an example. Polight said, and I quote, ISUPK got false prophets. Because y'all remember they predicted the end of the world at the year 2000. Brother, roll that clip of Malachi Z. York. Roll that clip real quick. The clip of Malachi Z. York that I gave you the prompt for. Listen carefully. Turn that volume up.
Especially now, because your body is beginning to adjust to this environment. You understand that? And in 8 more days, or 8 more years, when the 400 years is up, you will have been the 4th generation of genetic breeding chromosomes, and you will be back to a state of godliness in the year 2000. And the devil knows that. And he knows that the voice of one crying from the wilderness is already here. He hears it. He hears the teachings of the Lamb. I'm not the Messiah.
You can stop that video. All right, so the video stopped. Everybody, I want to make you know something right now. When you go back and you look at that video on YouTube, I believe the video is entitled Malachi Z. York Speaks. Dr. York Speaks. The video was taken in 1992. Dr. York said, I'm not sure if everyone heard it, but the video is on YouTube. I'm hoping you were listening. Dr. York said in 1992 to a group of his followers, we have 8 more days left. And by days, I mean year, unto the destruction of this nation and the building of our people. So didn't Dr. York, in essence, was the first one to speak about the destruction of the world in the year 2000? So why is Polight running around talking about ISUPK or false prophets? Listen, brother, there's nothing wrong in a person coming out and saying that they're wrong. But don't come out and be a hypocrite. And that's the point that we're making. Polight is going to come out in this debate and he's going to chop Hebrews down. But guess what we're going to find when we look inside Polight's archives? We're going to find this brother teaching Hebrew with a spirit of passion and will tell you in the video that he sees it as truth. Polight, you a hypocrite like I never seen one in my life. And your scholarship don't make no damn sense. Because you're self-defeating yourself with the things that you're doing. Either you have truth and don't realize it, or you don't have truth, brother. Everything that you're saying don't make no damn sense. Remember, you walk around with a fez that has a Star of David, an Egyptian Ankh, and a moon crescent. And you come from an organization that calls themselves Nuwabian Islamic Hebrews. So I have to ask the conscious community a question at this point. What the hell is Polight doing in this debate? Polight is a person who's passionate about Hebrew text and Hebrew thought, and will tell you that. If anybody watched the video with him on Sarnetta's couch yesterday, you'll see it. So with that being said, conscious community, what the hell is Polight doing in the debate? Oh, I know. Jonathan from the Amin Ra squad is a scholar, and Polight brings the entertainment. With that being said, let's bring on the questions.
Uh-oh, oh my gosh. Our brother is just dropping it. I can't believe this. Hey, brother Polight, you've got the link to the show. Please save your name. Save the Nuwapian organization. Save the New Covenant organization. Put our brother Zion Lexx in his place if you can. So, oh my gosh. Okay, we're going in right about now. We're going to have the comments. We're going to have the questions, everything lined up. If you're listening in right now, please, 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 please press the subscribe button down below if you want to hear more from the Titans. If you want to go back and watch our previous shows. On our previous shows, we had our brother Divine Prospects on. We had our brother Ahmose on. We had our brother Jonathan from the Alman Ra Squad on. We had Dr. Ali Muhammad on. We had Israel Doctrine on. So if you want to see more of the Titans, please just press the subscribe button down below and stay in tune with everything that we're putting out. If you want to watch all the exclusives before anybody else gets it, please press the subscribe button down below and you will be entitled to be the first ones to have and receive the exclusives. We have our brother Sam Colfer coming in next week. We have our brother Polight coming in. Also, we have tons of Titans passing through the studio. So if you want to stay in tune with us, I want to see these Titans live on the stage going at it with each other and presenting some powerful information that will help uplift and rise our consciousness. Please just press the subscribe button down below. Also, please, if you're watching a pre-recorded video of this, please just leave your comments down below. Let us know what you are liking, what questions you would like to have our brother Zion Lexx answer. It doesn't matter if it's a pre-recorded video, because you can always join the Facebook group, Talk with the Titans, and our brother Zion Lexx is there. He's proficient. He will be able to answer any questions that you have for him. So just please, you can find the contact details down below in this description box. Just press the more button and it will pop down and you will see all of our details there to connect with us. And you can connect with us on Facebook, Talk with the Titans. Also, please Google us, hashtag Talk with the Titans, one whole word. Facebook, Talk with the Titans, one whole word. YouTube, Talk with the Titans, hashtag Talk with the Titans, one whole word, and we are the first thing that pops up in all of those mediums. Also, if you are loving the information, please share it with people out there. Share it with your friends, share it with your family, share it with anybody that is into this information, okay? Just don't share it randomly. Share it to people that you know will actually benefit from this information that's being kicked at the moment. We've only got about 15 minutes left of the show ahead of us, so please, please, please press the subscribe button, like, and share. So, our brother Zion Lexx has just got in. He's dropped some bombs. He's given us some jewels. He's put Polight in the prosecution seat. Oh my gosh. So I'm going to welcome any questions and comments. If any brothers have any questions and comments, let me know. But I am going right now to the YouTube land and read out any questions. Okay. So there's one of the first questions when I scroll all the way back. You know, they're asking, did anybody hear the conversation between Zion Lexx and Brother Polight on Sarnet TV on the couch? So, Brother Zion Lexx, please, could you just reiterate what took place between that conversation with you and Polight? Because the rest of us, we're clueless. We don't know.
Okay. All right. So yesterday, Brother Sarnetta, he had the Hebrews on the couch with the Cometics, and it's entitled on Sarnetta TV, the Hebrews versus the Cometics, or the Kemets. I believe it was Brother Reggie, Shakka Ahmose, and Polight. You have Elder Gabar from GOCC. You had Brother Divine Prospect there representing for the Hebrews. And with that being said, there was, you know, a whole almost 2 hours worth of dialogue between both camps talking about the upcoming debate for February 8th. So Polight now, and I'm going to give you something right now that Polight asked for last night, but the phone was hung up on me because Polight didn't like me yelling at him, so they actually had to hang up the phone on me. But I heard, as I was watching the clip, that Polight asked a question to Elder Gabar, he said to him, he said, listen, I'll be very honest with you. And this is Polight speaking. He said, when we talk about the Medu Netta and we talk about the word netta, he said, you know, that's where nature comes from, or that's where the interpolation gods comes from in the plural. Well, he said, I'll be very honest with you. In Kemet or in Egypt, there is no gods. Number one, when he said that, Shakka Ahmose was looking like, what the hell are you talking about? So that's just the hypocrisy again, in that they point out division in our camps. Well, here it is, Polight is on the couch letting loose information that his own brother don't even agree with. Because when he interpreted the word necha as being nature, and it not having the significant interpretation of gods in any language, and he asked, I guess, Shakka Ahmose to co-sign it, Shakka Ahmose looked with confusion like, but I believe it's gods. Because in fact, when you open up Shakka Ahmose's pamphlet, or I guess the little newspaper that he wrote, he talks about gods in there. So with that being said, the brother Shakka Ahmose almost didn't want to co-sign it, but Polight put him on the spot. So it just goes to show the hypocrisy that Brother Polight will point out the contradiction, or he's reaching for contradictions within our doctrine and say that we disagree, when y'all disagreeing on live TV, brother. So, I mean, let's be serious. So Polight says, does the word for nature in Hebrew line up perfectly with our Hebrew word for God? So Elder Gabar said no. I immediately, as a scholar in the Hebrew language, I love my brother Elder Gabar, but I had to disagree because my understanding of Hebrew is a bit greater as a scholar in Hebrew for over 20 years. So I called into the show immediately. I called Sarnetta's phone. They weren't even taking calls, but I just called because I said, this not going down. We're not going to have Polight giving lessons on Hebrew. Polight don't speak Hebrew fluently. Polight is somewhat familiar with Hebrew, but to be somewhat familiar with a language and be fluent in it is totally two different things. You know, a person could be fluent in reading Hebrew and not speaking it. It's the same reason why you can find people come in this country who can read our English language perfectly well, but if you dialogue with them, they don't have a clue what you're talking about. So first and foremost, when you speak about yourself as being proficient or fluent in a language, when you say fluent, you're talking about reading and talking. Polight can't read or talk Hebrew fluently, so you're neither one. With that being said, the first thing I said when I called in was this. In Hebrew, every Hebrew letter has a numerical equivalent, similar to the Greek alphabet where alpha is 1, beta is 2, gamma is 3, so forth and so on, or your Roman numerals. All of that comes from Hebrew, which is the mother language of those languages. So with that being said, every Hebrew letter has a numerical equivalent. The Hebrew word for nature in Hebrew is hateva, which means nature. It's spelled in Hebrew for those who actually know Hebrew. Hey, tate, bait, ayin. Hey, tate, bait, ayin. Hateva. That's the Hebrew word for nature. The Hebrew word for Elohim now, Hebrews already know how to spell it. Aleph, Lamed, Hey, Yod, Mem. Aleph, Lamed, Hey, Yod, Mem. Both of these words in Hebrew have a numerical equivalence of 86. In Hebraic thought, when two words share the same numerical equivalence, they're said to have conceptual relationship. I'll give you an example. The Hebrew word for father in Hebrew is Abba. It's spelled Aleph and Beit. Aleph is numerically equivalent to 1, and Beit is numerically equivalent to 2, so you have 3. The Hebrew word for mother is Ima, which is spelled Ayin, Mem, Ima, or 41. When you add 41 of Ima with 3, which is Abba, you have 44. Watch what's beautiful and distinct about the Hebrew language that you can't find in any other language. The Hebrew word for child is Yeled, like your son that you're holding right now. He's a Yeled. The Hebrew word Yeled is spelled Yod, Lamed, Dalet. Yod, Lamed, Dalet, or 1034, which is 44. So the Hebrew word for father and mother is numerically equivalent to 44, the same as the Hebrew word for child. Why? Because a mother and father, when they come together, what do they give you? A child. So with that being said, when Hebrew words have the same numerical value, there's a significant amount of information conveyed in it. And there's things that we're going to drop on February 8th with relationship to what I'm saying now, that's going to baffle both sides of the fence, not just the conscious community, but the Kemetic community. This Torah is extremely deep. So with that being said, I pointed out the intrinsic relationship between the Hebrew word for nature and the Hebrew word for Elohim, because in Hebraic thought, what the heathen calls Mother Nature, we as Hebrews understand to be the hand of God, the work of God. What the heathens, people who have no understanding or concept of God, refer to as Mother Nature, we understand that to be all in the creative control of the creator of heaven and earth. Hence why the Hebrew word for nature is numerically equivalent to the Hebrew word for God, Elohim. So when Elder Gabar said that they don't have any relationship, I had to disagree. And he was falling into a trap that Polight was trying to set. And I saw the trap coming, which is why I made mention of it. So that's what that was all about. And when I called in, I could barely hear myself on the phone, so I needed to yell. So Polight felt that I was yelling at him. But Polight need to man up. He told me a couple videos ago that I'm taking things too personal. But brother, you can't accuse a person of being soft when you can't take a shot. Again, hypocrisy. Well, let's go.
Okay. And you know what? I have to give a big shout out to our brother, Divine Prospect. Divine Prospect, I salute you out there. I see what you're doing for us. Let me come back again. I'm going to have to say, Brother Zion Prospect, I salute you out there. I see the excellent work that you're doing out there on Sarnet TV. Thank you so much for the shout outs. I saw the shout out. It was literally around 7 minutes in and 10 minutes in. You gave us a big shout out with Talk with the Titans. So thank you for that shout out on Sarnet TV. And I'm going to ask everybody again, please subscribe down below if you want to see more of these Titans. But right about now, we've got one of our resident Titans in the building that actually wants to have his voice heard. We've got Brother Israel Doctrine. So I'm going to actually put Brother Israel Doctrine in right now. Israel Doctrine, all you have to do right now is unmute your mic and everybody can hear you.
Peace to the room. Peace, Zion. How you doing, bro?
Shalom, brother. How you doing? Peace to you.
I'm good. Before this year out, I just got to bring up this controversy. I haven't had a chance to ever talk to you about it. I want to know your stance on salvation for the Africans and the love of God or the disdain of God form, whatever, shape, form, or fashion you ever heard the argument that God has no salvation or no love for the Africans. If you can address that,
okay,
I might not ever get another chance.
First and foremost, again, I want to make it clear that when people, can y'all hear me clear?
Yeah, we can hear you.
People speak of Hebrew Israelites having no love for Mother Africa or having love for no Africans. I'm going to just tell you right now, they haven't met a real Hebrew Israelite. Real Hebrew Israelites don't talk like that. That's number one. So when it comes to salvation and who salvation is open to, the Torah makes it very clear that salvation is not granted, it's earned. Salvation is earned by being in sync with the will of the Creator of heaven and earth. And the way that the Torah defines that is that when you are in sync with the Creator's will, which means you are keeping His Torah, then in essence, you have merited salvation. The very first time that these concepts appeared in the Torah appeared in the story of Noah. Two words appear in the story of Noah and Noah's Ark in Genesis chapter 6. There are two particular Hebrew words that are introduced at the same time. It's the Hebrew word for grace, which is Cain, and the Hebrew word for righteousness, which is Zedek. The Torah says that during the era of Noah, that the entire world were wicked, except for Noah. Noah was a righteous man. Then the Torah goes on to say that because Noah was a righteous man, meaning that he walked with God, meaning that his entire character aligned with the will of his maker, the Torah says because he walked with God, he has merited mercy, or what is termed favor. So first and foremost, when we speak about salvation, we have to understand that salvation from the perspective of Torah means that you earned it by keeping God's law, which in essence means that most Hebrew Israelites would tell you that we automatically got salvation. Well, I'm going to tell you as a real Hebrew Israelite that when you talk like that, that's Christian talk. That's Christian talk to walk around talking about I'm saved and you have no works in the bank. The Creator of heaven and earth do not play that. What have you done for me lately? What is it that you are doing that is showing the world that you are aligned with my will. You can't speak of yourself as being saved and you have no merit. You have no action to back it up. So with that being said, even Hebrew Israelites who may believe to themselves that they are Hebrew Israelites by nationality and by ancestry may not have salvation open to them as well, because you are not in sync with the Creator's law. Salvation is clearly defined as keeping God's law, which means if you're not keeping his law, you're not getting it. Whether friend or foe, whether Israelite or Gentile, you're not getting it. So if any Israelite is running around talking about Africans automatically are not getting salvation because of their lineage, because they're Africans, that's foolishness. Because the Torah tells the Israelite plain as day, you're not even getting it if you're not aligned with the Torah. Hence why we're in places like America and the West Indies and scattered abroad the face of the earth. The Creator wants those who are in sync with his will. The Creator is not playing. When the Creator spoke of the nation of Israel, he said that he looked around and he saw that there was one man who aligned himself with his will. That one man was Abraham. Because of Abraham, the Creator said, I chose him and his descendants to be representatives of my will. Don't you know that a similar concept is brought out in the Kemetic doctrine, in that the Pharaoh is the incarnation of the will of their gods? So when they speak of Israelites as being hypocrites or crazy for speaking about a doctrine which focuses on a particular people or a particular person as a channel for salvation, they are being hypocrites in that instance and in that moment, because their Pharaoh was seen as a divine incarnation and channel of the salvation of their gods. So let's keep it real. But to answer my brother Israel Doctrines verbatim, I'll say this. Since you know Torah, you know that the book of Isaiah chapter 56 says this emphatically. And even to the foreigners who join themselves to my name, to love me and keep my commandments, even unto them will I give a place in my house greater than even sons and daughters. That's a very powerful position or statement to make. The Creator, in essence, just told us and the world all over that even those who are not of Israelite ancestry, if they keep the will of the Creator, which the Tanakh calls the Torah, God's law, if you align yourself with God's law, whether friend or foe, whether Israelite or Gentile, you have the ability to become righteous. Righteous is not a color. It's not a lineage. Righteousness is your actions aligned with the Creator of heaven and earth, and understanding that the Creator chose a particular people to represent that idea in the earth. No different than what Kemet is teaching, in that their pharaohs represented the salvation and will of their gods. So let's keep it real is all I'm asking.
Thank you, Brother Zion Lexx, for that. Wow. We're actually running out of time at the present moment in time, so
we can extend it a little bit. I'll take a 20-minute extension. I'm about this truth. I want everybody's questions to come through.
Okay. What we're going to do right now, then, we're going to take the last few questions live on air. Okay, we're going to get the last few questions live on air, and afterwards we're going to have more questions, more commentary, and even miniature round style debates at the end of the show. Okay, we already know what Talk with the Titans is about. For those who don't know what Talk with the Titans is about, Talk with the Titans was birthed out the idea that the Titans, the intellectuals of the community, should have a well-organized platform to present, discuss, and debate critical information affecting our community proposed by you, the community. So if you have any questions or any commentary to give to our Titans, please leave it down below in the description box, or alternatively, just join us on Facebook, on the Facebook group, Talk with the Titans, and you can ask ask any question you want to our Titan, and they're always happy to respond to you. So please, this is a community. It's not just a one-man band show. It is for all of us to come together and make the show a show. Okay, with that being said, we've got one of the last questions, commentaries from our brother Carbon. Carbon Radio from the UK. Brother Poverty, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, King.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I was just going to say, I commend the brother Zion Lexx. The brothers, I've heard the brother on the War Machine. Brother's a very intelligent brother. I was just gonna say, the King James now. Daniela was talking. Do you know anything about King James being a black man, brother? Lionel.
No, I don't know anything about King James being a black man. And I'm glad you asked the question because we already know that these things are going to be asked in the debate forum. So I'm very glad that you asked it now because it gives us opportunity, or it gives me the opportunity to kill some of that perception. I don't agree with that, and I'm emphatic about that because I'm objective in my approach of truth. But at no means am I going to sit down and belittle my brother because he has that perception. If his scholarship led him to that, then that's where his scholarship led him to. But I, on the other hand, I don't believe in that. I haven't found any scholarship in the idea that King James was a black man, and I haven't found any scholarship in the idea of the King James Version being an authority on the Torah. Because as a scholar of the Hebrew language, I'm going to make it very clear that when you talk about the Torah, if you're reading it in any text other than its original text, then you have to understand, first and foremost, as an intelligent individual, that you have lost the essence of that conversation or that message that was conveyed. Everyone is familiar with the concept or the term lost in translation. And even to my Kemetic community, I want to make this statement too. I'm pretty sure the Kemetic community understands that if someone was to read the Book of the Coming Forth by Day, which most people call, the Book of the Dead, if someone was to read that in the English, an Egyptologist is going to tell them that you do not have the baseline perception of what it conveys, nor do you have the depth of thought conveyed behind what's in the baseline or behind the surface. Because in language, there are two different polarities of speech conveyed. Whenever a person speaks, there is the surface information that all of the common minds can grasp. Then there is a semblance of brilliance, which is in depth in that thought that you actually have to be astute to actually internalize and perceive. And this is prevalent in all languages. All languages have a surface or baseline perception, then there's a depth of thought. I'll give you one example. If you're reading the Bible in the King James Version, the first thing you're going to read is Genesis chapter 1, which says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." Well, let me tell you something as a Hebrew scholar. The word bereshit, the first part is the letter beit, which is a preposition. It means in or with. The vowel that's under the beit is zere, so it actually doesn't mean in, it means with. The next part is the Hebrew word reshit, which means beginning. Throughout the book of Proverbs, King Solomon equates reshit, which is beginning, with what is called chakma, which is wisdom. In over a dozen places, King Solomon says in Hebrew, reshit chakma, or in English, in the beginning is wisdom. So in essence, those who truly internalize Hebrew will tell you, don't read the first word of Genesis as in the beginning. Read it as with wisdom. So when you understand that the depth of thought conveyed means with wisdom, then you can read the entire sentence as, with wisdom, God created the heavens and the earth. But let me take a step further and show you how deep and brilliant this Hebrew language is. The Hebrew word for wisdom is chakma, which is spelled chet, mem, kaf, he. When you spell out the individual letters in the word, I'll give you an example. For instance, the first letter of the Hebrew word for wisdom is chet, and it's spelled chet yod tav. That has a numerical equivalency of 418. Follow me. The next word is kaf, which is 20, and pei, which is 80 or 100. The next word is mem, which is mem yod mem, or 90. The final letter is he, which is 5. When you add 418 plus 100 plus 90 plus 5, you now have 613. So instead of reading the verse as in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, those who understand the depth of thought conveyed in Hebrew understand it as with the Torah God created the heavens and the earth. You understand what I'm saying? You can come in now.
Wow, so we've actually reached the end of the show at this present moment in time. So I have to apologize for anybody actually out there who wants to actually get their information out live on the air. It will be taking place after the show is finished. We're going to continue for another half an hour to an hour. I'm pretty sure it's going to go into another 2 hours. So if you actually want to be involved with these after the show talks, please subscribe down below to the YouTube channel and get in contact with me, and I'll always be happy to send you the links. Also, just follow us on the Google Plus as well, Google Plus, and we'll send you the invites to all the future shows first. The people in the Talk with the Titans group always has the first dibs to be on the show. So please, this has been Talk with the Titans, and I have been your host, Callum L. And we've just had our brother Zion Lexx in the studio prosecuting our brother, our sinner, Polight. So we know brother Polight has said that he's going to be hot on his heels, hot on Zion Lexx's heels. So please look forward to an emergency episode in the near future with our brother Polight. So thank you very much for tuning in. I've been your host, Callum L, and this has been Talk with the Titans.